Hey guys, TheSneakySnake here, Brothers in Arms, World of Warships, and today's video we're going to take a look here at the Tier 9 American heavy cruiser, the USS Baltimore. Ever since the time of the closed beta until around February or March, this thing was definitely considered one of the worst ships in the game, tier for tier, as it had terrible DPM and among other things, it just didn't have the staying or the striking power to be very effective. However, one big buff to its gun performance really improved this thing, and I want to take a closer look at this ship. You have 42,700 hit points and up to 152 millimeters of armor. You can see there on the side, the Citadel armor is actually very, very good. However, one thing about the ship that is really nice is the barbette, 160 millimeters, along with 25 millimeters of frontal armor on the bow, allows you to tank 15-inch guns and less from battleships pretty easily with auto ricochet, and 8-inch guns really don't pose much of a threat. Hit point wise, you are more than the Ibuki and the San Luis, but you're less than ships like the Dmitry Donskoy, the Neptune, and the Rune, so you fit in right about the middle. As for the main guns, this is the most important thing. You get 9 of these 203mm Mark 15s arranged in a 3x3 layout with 2 guns at the front. You can see that it has a respectable range of 15.8 kilometers. It is on the low side, and that shell velocity is only 762 meters a second. This was one of the big things about the ship. It just didn't have the DPM. The original reload on this was, I believe, 14 seconds, and you could get it down to 13. However, you can see mine is 8.8. I will go over that in more detail in a little bit, and it certainly is the reason why I have the Baltimore outfitted the way that I do. But these guns, of course, also benefit from American armor-piercing shells, which have auto-ricochet angles at 67.5 degrees, roughly. So what that means is that you can penetrate and get citadels on ships, specifically cruisers, at much better angles than your contemporaries. As for the Aaa Defense, it is, I'd say, second to the Dmitry Donskoy in terms of its potency. You can see it comes equipped with the standard World War II 20mm Oerlikon, 40mm Bofors, and 127mm Mark 32 arrangement. You have 23 of the Oerlikons, 12 times 4 of the Bofors, and then of course a decent arrangement of the 127. You can see here, compared to the Dmitry Donskoy, the DPS is roughly the same. However, the Dmitry Donskoy does beat it out, I believe, in the long range and mid-range department. But again, a 91 rating on this thing is still pretty good. You will be able to swat tier 9 planes and lower out of the sky pretty easily. Looking at the maneuverability of the ship, 32.5 knots is on the lower side. You will be outpaced by French, Soviet, and Japanese vessels. However, you do have a very good rudder shift time of 6.3 seconds. This is, of course, with the rudder module equipped, and a turning radius of 730 meters is A-OK. As for the concealment, however, this is one of the strongest things about the ship. 9.7 kilometers when you go with a full concealment build, and your radar has a range of about 9.5, so you only have a 200-meter buffer zone. So basically, when you do get detected in the ship, you can't afford to pop your radar. Speaking of the consumables, you have access to damage control party. Of course, I usually go with premium for most of the stuff. I go with the defensive AA. Of course, it is a very powerful tool on the ship. It's active for 40 seconds, and it obviously turns this thing into an AA monster. The surveillance radar, 35 seconds is the duration, and 9.45, excuse me, is the range of its acquisition. This ship is very, very good at contesting caps and getting those pesky destroyers away. And then, of course, you have access, since it's tier 9, to the repair party to allow you to get some of your hit points back. So it greatly increases the staying power over the ship at tier 8, which is the USS New Orleans. Taking a look at my upgrades, main armaments mod 1 is a must for cruisers, as auxiliary and the detonation really doesn't do too much. For the second slot, I go with AA Guns Mod 2 to get that 7.2 kilometer range on your long range AA, which is something that is very, very important. Main Battery Mod 2 isn't a bad idea because this thing does have, even with Expert Marksman, a rather low speed of its turret turn, but it's not terrible. The third slot, however, is the most controversial. Most people go with Gunfire Control System Mod 2, which extends your range by 16%. I prefer to go with a full DPM build and get this thing down to an 8.8 second reload. If you decided to go with the range module, you're going to be shooting well past 17 kilometers, albeit at a 10-second reload, vice the 8.8. 8.8. And I really feel that this ship's strength is getting into brawling distances versus other cruisers and destroyers and being able to take care of business. Now, I know what you might be thinking, well, Sneaky, most of the maps are not conducive to that type of gameplay, but I beg to differ, and I will show you in the gameplay. Damage Control Mod 1 for that fourth one. Honestly, steering gears is not a bad idea, but I really don't get my steering gears knocked out too much in this thing. Speaking of steering gears, you got to go with Modification 2 for the fifth slot to get that rudder shift down by 20%, which again makes it a very, very nice 6.3 seconds. And then, of course, Concealment is pretty much a no-brainer. You could potentially go with Steering Gears Mod 3 to get that rudder shift down even to more ridiculous levels, but I think the trade-off in Concealment is not necessarily worth it. You're going to be sitting at about 10.6, 10.7 kilometers detection if you decide to do so. In terms of the upgrades on the ship, well, this thing actually sucks stock. You only have a 14.4 kilometer range, so I highly, highly suggest saving up some free XP to at least get the range module and get that B-hull. You can see the upgrade for the turret gets that reload down from 13 to 10 seconds, which is the most important thing. And then, of course, putting on Main Battery Mod 3 to get that down to 8.8. It gives you the same reload as the Rune. While the Rune's AP performance is better in terms of damage, you're going to be doing way better in the consistency department with the Baltimore. Priority target for my captain skill for the first one, Expert Marksman, I think is a must. It's about a 30-second turret traverse with Expert Marksman, which isn't the best. Adrenaline Rush is definitely a skill on this ship, and I will be showing you why in the gameplay. Superintendent, obviously getting a better, an extra heal, radar, and defensive AA is so important. Advanced firing training, of course, to get that AA out to 7.2 kilometers. And then, of course, Concealment Expert is another very good option. Other perks to get or to consider, Basics of Survivability is not a bad idea for your very high-tier cruisers that do have access to heals. And then, of course, you could also go with basic firing training to turn that AA from 10 to 11, and that's probably what I'm going to do once I get that last 19th point to fill it out. Expert Loader is also not a bad idea, specifically for the Des Moines, which you get after, which, of course, has that insane reload that you can get down to 4.8 seconds. So, that's the Baltimore in a nutshell. It's a cruiser that has a terrifying DPM if you're able to use the armor-piercing shells, and it's a ship that still people do not take very seriously at all. So before we get into the gameplay, I'm going to show you a few extra clips for some advanced tips and tricks. Alrighty guys, here is the first little snippet of gameplay. I am here on a map called Sea of Fortune, and we're in a bit of a pickle here. You can see that there's enemy ships that are trying to flank us to the outside. However, I want you to notice the performance of the AP, and specifically my position in relation to the Dmitry Donskoy and the Mikhail Kutuzov, which will be coming around the corner. My first two salvos did a combined 10,000 damage to that Donskoy, and he was not at a bad angle, to be honest with you. But you can see here the quality and the consistency of the penetration. I've put myself in a spot where that Donskoy is really unable to shoot back, and I'm also undetected as well. You can loop these shells over the islands even at just under 10 kilometers worth of range, and it allows you unparalleled flexibility as I continue to land citadels on that guy as well. I wait for the Kutuzov to come out around the island just a little bit, and 4 citadels for 17,000 points of damage right into that guy. He had no idea that I was there, and my damage has completely ballooned to over 106,000 points at this moment. The Dmitry Donskoy does move out, and I am detected slightly, but you're also going to see the penetration of the shells. That 67.5 roughly degree angle that I speak of, you're going to see the Donskoy turn away from these shells, and right as I zoom back in, notice where those shells hit. He was angled extremely well, and I still managed to get 3 pens and another citadel on that guy, and as these shells fall in, I will be able to secure the kill. So in that real quick bit of gameplay, I was able to up my damage by almost 60,000 as I took care of those 2 Soviet cruisers. So this is a little bit later in that same gameplay. There is a North Carolina coming around the corner, so I got to get myself angled to him. However, I also need to get some AP right into his broadside. You can see the shells flying in, 9,900, picking up the Confederate, but you're also going to see here the armor performance. The 152 millimeters of belt armor right there, tanking the shells, took about 9,000 points of damage, but you can see the amount of hit points that I'm able to get back. And also in chat, yes, I was very sneaky in that engagement, taking out that Kutuzov and the Dimitri Donskoy without too much of an issue. And between these last two clips, the big thing and the most important takeaway is you can see this reload with Adrenaline Rush. It is absolutely brutal. And if you're a fan of German cruisers and getting high alpha strikes, you can do the same thing with these American cruisers. That salvo right there was the first one that was under 4,000. Once again, I took about 10k there in damage from that guy, but I'm going to be able to get a lot of it back. And my damage spiked by almost 100,000 in that short little engagement right there. Alrighty guys, here's another couple of clips about positioning in this ship properly. You can see here that Yamato is about 10 kilometers away, and he's on 87,000 hit points. However, I've kind of put myself in a position where I can lob these shells over the island right into his juicy broadside and absolutely wreck his ship. 6,600 on the first salvo, about 11,000 on the second. You're going to see here he's going to try to shoot over the island, but of course this is something that the Baltimore absolutely excels at. Being able to stay in cover and potentially concealment as well, and just lobbing shells over hard cover into your opponent is something that I cannot stress enough, and that's the whole focus of the DPM build. You're foregoing the ability to potentially strike out at range to trade off with the ability to just absolutely annihilate ships that try and push your position. And again, going up against cruisers and battleships, their hit point totals just get absolutely deleted by these AP shells, and it's something that is so rewarding, and if you put yourself in the right position, is so awesome. And lastly right here, this is some very high level positioning stuff going on right here. I've put my Baltimore in a position where I'm able to shoot around the island while staying undetected. You can see that I just went undetected right there. I have both of my forward guns in a position to shoot around the side. However, since I'm not detected by enemy aircraft, I'm able to do this with relative impunity. And this Alabama really has no idea what's going on, at least I'm guessing that he doesn't. You can see that he's coming to a stop, but this is the worst thing that he could do. And even with just 6 guns at the front, you can see the wonderful AP damage, 4,900 right there, and it didn't even hit the superstructure on that Tier 8 premium American battleship, just pumping wonderful damage into this guy. And you can see here that the island on my right is protecting me from detection by the Yamato and the Baltimore. And then, of course, the Alabama is not able to detect me because more than half of my ship is, roughly behind the outcropping, the jut in the island right there. And this is something that, I mean, look at that, 6,600 damage. This is just, there's literally nothing that guy can do. He's trying to back up, but he's still going to be eating damage from me. And this is just some absolutely silly positioning in this ship. Alrighty guys, and now we're going to take a look here at some textbook Baltimore gameplay. I'm divisioned up with my buddies Puddin and Elastic Spider. Puddin's playing in the Tier 9 American aircraft carrier, the Essex, and Spider is playing in the Tier 9 American destroyer, the Fletcher. So we got quite the America division going on here, and we're playing some domination here on the map Northern Lights. So, this gameplay that you're going to see right here is not the highest damaging game that I've ever had. It's also not the highest XP game that I've had in this ship, but it gives you a good idea of how the DPM build is supposed to work on this ship. And that's the whole point of this review. The Baltimore can be played with the range module. And there are plenty of people out there that, honestly, they use the range module. That, and on the Des Moines as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you feel comfortable enough shooting at long range and being able to hit targets, well, you know what? Then go for it. If that suits your playstyle, as I accidentally shoot right there, if that suits your playstyle, then go for it. But I just think the Baltimore's true potential is getting in close. And I know what you're thinking. This ship does not have torpedoes, so why would you want to get in close to enemy cruisers and other battleships that would be able to torpedo you? And that's where learning how to position correctly, not just in this ship, but in any ship in the game, any class of ship in the game, is so important. And this ship, in my opinion, along with the Des Moines at Tier 10, they can truly, honestly be the best cruisers in tier if you master positioning and if you're able to unlock all of the gifts that this ship and the Des Moines are able to provide to you. And I honestly have not even had a grind in this ship. It's been completely 100% bliss. I've enjoyed almost every game in this ship because it really is a ship that, if you unlock all of its potential, can do a lot of things that other cruisers quite simply cannot. And I'm not taking that away from any of the other ones. The Rune, the Donskoy, they're all very powerful Tier 9 cruisers, and in my opinion, the first tier of cruisers that really do show their colors in terms of being able to have a substantial impact on the game. Now, of course, it helps to play in a division, especially with Unicum players like Spider and Puddin, but the point remains, this ship is exceptionally good in the right hands, and it has so much flexibility and utility, along with a whole host of wonderful stats that you can do a lot of things in this ship. So at the beginning of the game, I'm moving up here into Objective Alpha. You can see this Harakazi has been lit up by Puddin in his S6 by those fighter aircraft, so we should have no trouble taking care of this guy. And it appears he is also unaware, even though I was detected by aircraft very briefly, that I have moved up into this position. 5 shells land on target for 4,500 damage done, and before my next salvo was even able to get downrange, the 2 Fletchers on my team with Elastic Spider getting the kill on the Harakazi are able to take care of business, and we're easily going to be able to dodge his torpedoes. So I didn't even have to blow a radar for that, but I certainly could have if that Harakazi slowed down enough to stay inside of his smoke screen. And that's one of the key things to unlock in this ship, being able to put yourself close enough to get the full 35-second duration out of the radar, because again, it's only 9.45 kilometers of detection, so you do need to get in close to use it. But if you do so, as you're going to see upcoming when I move over to Bravo, the enemy ship that is trying to take cover from your radar and is unable to is going to die. It's literally guaranteed. If you put yourself in the position correctly with the DPM build, there is literally no destroyer that is going to be able to get away from you unless they've also realized that you're in the area and they did some sort of safety precaution to try and keep themselves away from your radar. So at this point, it's 369 to 210. The enemy team is moving heavily to the east. They're about to capture Delta, they're about to capture Charlie, and of course they have the Fletcher, as I just mentioned, on Bravo. So we do have to move our way back. However, we have killed 2 of the enemy destroyers, so we still have a pretty decent point lead. But of course, we do need to at least even out the caps to keep it from the enemy team having a chance to come back. Now notice here the 2 Belfasts. This is a ship that can do a lot to those very overpowered Tier 7 premium British light cruisers. Notice that they are pushing through Charlie. We'll get to them in a little bit. Trying to get some shots here downrange at the Atlanta. He's only 11.5 kilometers away. However, he is moving away from me, and you can see that it does take a long time for those shells to get there. I do get 1 penetration for 825, and I try to get the killing blow out here. It does appear that he did turn broadside a little bit. Will I be able to punish him for it? Unfortunately, no. Only 1 shell over penetrates. So at this point, I am detected by aircraft, and you can see there my buddy D-Mags from the MIA clan. He is looking my way, so it's a good thing that I went undetected, and you can see some shells just flying in. I do take 1 right on the booty, and it's only an over penetration. One really quick thing that I forgot to mention in the port, this ship does have some very weak aft end armor, so you do have to be somewhat careful when providing your booty to the enemy team, especially battleships that are able to absolutely wreck it. So that's why having the rudder shift module is important in my opinion, because the ship also excels when shooting over the shoulder, i.e. shooting behind you, as it has excellent gun angles that allow you to get your full broadside to bear with very good angling, both to the front and to the stern. Now right here is when I pop my radar, and you can see the Fletcher is detected at 7 kilometers away. He's full health, albeit he is stock at only 13,900 hit points, and he cannot escape. Potentially in a Soviet cruiser with only 20 seconds worth of radar, there is a chance for him to get away, but he's just going to die. And did you notice? I shot armor piercing at that guy, and I was able to pen him twice and get 4 overpens for 5,300 damage. You don't necessarily have to switch to HE. I don't use the HE too much in this thing, unless of course you're going against angled battleships that are sitting bow on, but the point remains. You can still do some incredible damage with the armor piercing. Speaking of the AP, I get a nice Citadel here on the Belfasts, and this is where this thing is absolutely able to eat those dastardly British light cruisers alive when you run the rate of fire build. Another 2 Citadels for 14,800 damage done to that guy. My buddy Puddin gets a very nice drop on him with his dive bombers. Unfortunately, I'm not able to get the kill right there, but I'm now looking for the shot, and you can see here just how quickly his hit points have gotten deleted. And again, this is all due to this wonderful 8.8 second reload. The other Belfast is still out in the open. I'm now looking for some shots at this guy. You can see my damage has spiked quite considerably shooting at these light cruisers, and look at that, 12,600. Only 1 penetration that landed in a Citadel, but still 4 pens regardless of that, and a couple overpens. These shells that are flying in also get yet another Citadel, 6,000 damage. Every single salvo except for 1 that I've shot at these guys has had at least 1 Citadel, and here we go with the kill shot. There we go, another double Citadel right there, already at 7 of those bad boys as I pick up my first kill of the game. And now I'm going to show you the over-the-shoulder shooting that you can utilize in the Baltimore. Again, you do have to be wiggling and changing your speed, so as that Friedrich Grosse shoots at me, you can see as I also switch to the high explosive, I start to turn in, and luckily for me, unfortunately, his shells do miss. But again, look at the angle that I am able to shoot over the shoulder at this guy. That is some very intense stuff where his 16 and 16.5-inch guns, because they're very inaccurate, are going to have a very difficult time hitting me. And you can also see the very consistent damage that I am landing on that guy. All of my salvos thus far have been over 4,000 damage. And I was able to set fire as well. I shoot one more salvo of high explosive, and now I'm going to switch to the armor piercing. And you can see I was going at about half speed as I set in under the fire. One shell overpens, but his aim was off because he shot well too far in front of me. Now, what is going to save my life right here is myself changing drastically my speed and just turning, because I kind of lost track of the destroyer. There was a Yagumo, I believe, that was over there in the cap that I failed to take advantage of where he might be, and because it's a cruiser, the Baltimore takes insane damage from torpedoes. I lost almost 30k right there, as Putin managed to take care of the Friedrich de Grosse, so a very poor play right here, but I do manage to pop the radar, and there we go. The Yagumo is 8.4 kilometers away, and now swinging my guns into play. I shoot one salvo of armor piercing, and of course I switch to the high explosive. The shell's going down, a couple, say a trio of overpens, but this Yagumo is, again, not going to be able to get away, but I do get a nice gift right here. A nice little fun and engaging as I pick up the devastating strike and the Confederate. So that engagement got ended quite a bit faster than I anticipated, but yes. 35 seconds worth of radar, absolutely ridiculous. You also saw that the Yagumo was getting shot at by, I believe, the Bismarck that's off to my port side. And again, he would have not been able to live right there. And you can see the damage that was able to get racked up on those Baltimores, the Freddy, and then, of course, detonating the Yagumo. I'm already up to 118,000 points of damage with 1 assisted base cap and 2 kills. If I were to die right now, this would still be a very solid performance in this ship. And again, I'm beating on a dead horse, but just notice throughout the replay and the clips that I provided after the import statistics, it's just the rate of fire on this thing. And I really want more people to take advantage of it. Yes, you're not going to be hitting stuff at range too often, but then again, think about it like this. This is the big question that I ask people whenever I have a discussion about this thing. Honestly, be truthful to yourself. How many, as I get another Citadel there on the Ibuki, what percentage, I shouldn't say how many, what percentage of damage of shell hits do you honestly get? It ranges going from 15.8, which is the max range, going out to 18.2, I believe, which is the max range with the range module equipped. What percentage of your damage and shell hits comes at that range? Chances are it's not a lot. And that's why I just thought to myself, you know what? This thing has wonderful maneuverability, it has wonderful concealment, it has wonderful armor. For a cruiser, those are very important things to have to be able to brawl, especially the armor and the maneuverability to be able to angle and to tank damage, and then of course the concealment to put yourself into positions to be able to do that. So thinking to myself, well, honestly, why not? The DPM build is so ridiculous, and it also gets you into the right mindset for the Des Moines, because everything you learn here in the Baltimore applies to the Des Moines, in all honesty. The only big difference is the incredible DPM buff that ship gets. And again, I know I've been talking about it a lot, but this is something that you should take advantage of. The game is rapidly ending here. We hit the 10-minute mark, and it's 7:08 to 3:39. The only thing that's left is the Essex. Now, right now, I would be able to shoot at him if I had the range module equipped. But you know what? I'd rather get in closer and basically guarantee more hits on target because, well, duh, the closer you get to a ship, the better off you're going to be in landing those shots. And another thing, I do run the flag that increases, I believe it's 20%, the amount of hit points that you're able to recover using the repair party. So I got chunked down to 10k with those 2 torpedo hits, but I'm back up to 23,000. So yes, it was a very dumb play on my part, but I am still combat efficient as I land a solid 10k salvo right there, and I didn't even get a Citadel on that Essex, but American AP shells, just wonderful performing. Again, they don't have the alpha damage of the Germans, but it's way more consistent. And after only 2 salvos right there with no Citadels, I was able to do 20,000 points of damage there to that S6. So now I've switched to the high explosive, and I'm going to try to light him on fire, and I'm just padding my damage at this point. And, well, it's ironic that I get a Citadel when he does angle, as I pick up the high caliber as well, about 150,000 points of damage done so far, excuse me. But you can see that the American high explosive, he did angle in, and I still managed to hit 5 shells, but it only did 2,300 points of damage. I do set a fire right there, but you can see that the alpha on the ship just isn't the best in regards to its high explosive. You're going to have to go to the Japanese or the French for a better performance there. 3,500 right there. You're also going to see the anti-aircraft performance of this ship. He is going to send one squadron of dive bombers at me as I light yet another fire on him. You can see they're within 7 kilometers, so I pop my defensive AA. Mind you, these are Tier 9 aircraft, and the Baltimore's AA is absolutely ridiculous with defensive fire. You can see that I'm already at 2 planes, and before his squadron is even able to reach me, look at that, 5 planes shot down, make that 7. Took care of 7 of those dive bombers as my last salvo flies in on the Essex, and I managed to secure the kills. Very good performance here in the Baltimore. Alrighty guys, taking a look now at the post-battle results. 585,000 credits received and over 11.6k total EXP. I picked up the Devastating Strike, the Confederate, and High Caliber. 176,000 points of damage dealt off of 156 shell hits that caused 9 citadels and started 4 fires. I shot down 7 planes, sank 3 enemy ships, and assisted in the A base capture. Taking a look at the team score, 3,039 base EXP, a very, very healthy performance in this ship. My buddy Spider having a pretty good game in his Fletcher, and Putin rounding out the top half of the leaderboard with 2 kills of his own and 9 planes shot down. So as a whole, we were able to take care of 6 of the 12 enemy ships. And right there, that was honestly as good of a replay that I can find that showcases all of the strengths of the Baltimore and what its potential is able to do. And we're also going to take a look at the detailed report here. 45k with the HE, 15k with the fires, 115,000 points of damage with the AP. Assuming I had no HE and no fires, that's still a very, very respectable amount of damage done. And yeah, this thing is just, it's been an absolute riot to play. And I highly, highly suggest giving the try of the DPM build on the ship. If you have access to the PTS, go ahead, give it a go. This thing is ridiculous. And as long as you work on your positioning and communicate well with your teammates, this thing is one of the best team ships in the game and is in a very, very healthy spot right now. And I cannot wait to get to the Des Moines. So with that being said, as always, the Sneaky Snake here for Brothers in Arms World of Warships signing off. Please consider giving the video a like, commenting on it, possibly subscribing to the channel, and also share it to your friends. Let them know about how great this Baltimore is now in the current game meta. And again, with that being said, have a great day. Sneaky Snake out.